Chapter 1. There are 14 languages I speak fluently, and 3 more that I can navigate well enough to be useful in a negotiation. This is not something I say to impress people. It is simply a fact about me the way other facts are facts. My name is Lyra. I have fair skin and black hair and dark eyes, and I have been working as a court translator for 7 years, and in that time I have sat in more rooms than I can count where important things were being decided, and I have been the voice between the people deciding them. I am very good at my work, not just technically. The technical part, the languages themselves, is the foundation, but it is not the whole thing. The whole thing is understanding what someone means, not just what they say. The way a language carries culture in it. The specific weight a word has in one language that does not exist in another. The way the same sentence can mean completely different things depending on who is saying it, and to whom and with what they are not saying alongside it. I pay attention to all of it. I always have. It is the most ingrained habit I have. The other thing I do, which is less of a professional skill and more of a personal one that has become professionally useful, is that I am very good at being unnoticed, not invisible exactly. But I have learned over 7 years of sitting in important rooms that people in those rooms stop registering my presence after a while. I am the translator. I am the voice that carries their meaning from one side of the table to the other. I am a function, and functions, after a while, are just part of the furniture. This means that I hear things. Not secrets exactly, not things people are deliberately hiding, but the things people say when they have stopped performing for their audience because the audience has become furniture. The asides, the mutterings, the things people say to themselves or to the person beside them in the language they do not think anyone else in the room understands. I always understand. I have a professional rule about this. What is said in the room stays in the room. I translate what I am asked to translate, and I do not use the rest. I have never violated this rule in 7 years, and I do not intend to start. But I hear it, I file it away, and sometimes, over the course of a long negotiation, what I hear when people do not know I am listening tells me more about who they are than everything they say when they know I am. Lord Caen arrived at court 8 months ago, and I was assigned to him immediately, because his delegation spoke 3 languages that overlapped poorly with the court's, and I was the only one who could bridge all of them cleanly. He has tan skin and gray hair and blue eyes, and a reputation for being the most difficult negotiator anyone on the court side had ever encountered. Not difficult in the way of someone who is unreasonable. Difficult in the way of someone who is very precise about what they want and has thought about every possible response to every possible offer and is 3 steps ahead of every conversation he is in. He treats me exactly the way everyone treats me, like furniture, like a function, like a voice that carries meaning without being a person. This is fine, I am used to it, and it means that when he speaks in his own language to his advisors under his breath during negotiations, he does not lower his voice. He should lower his voice. Chapter 2. The first thing I hear that is not meant for me happens on the 3rd day of negotiations. We are in the middle of a particularly difficult session about trade route access. Both sides have been at this specific point for 2 days, and neither side is moving, and the atmosphere in the room has developed the particular quality of people who are tired of being patient. My job in moments like this is to translate precisely and quickly, and not to have opinions about what is being said, which I do not, officially. There is a recess, both delegations pull back from the table, and people begin speaking quietly among themselves. The court advisors group near the window. Lord Caen's delegation groups near the door. I am at the side of the room, where I always am, present but not part of either group. Lord Caen is standing a few feet from me. He is looking at the documents on the table. His senior advisor says something to him quietly in their language, asking his assessment of where the court side is likely to move. Caen responds in the same language without looking up from the documents. He says that the court's lead negotiator is not going to move on the primary point, but that he will move on the secondary one if the framing is changed slightly. He says the framing needs to make the secondary concession look like generosity rather than necessity. He says he has been watching how the lead negotiator manages his pride in sessions, and he thinks the key is letting him feel like he arrived at the solution rather than being brought to it. His advisor nods and says something about timing. Caen says he is going to wait until after the afternoon break when the other side has had food and has relaxed slightly and is less invested in their position. He says the window for the shift is approximately 20 minutes and he intends to use it. Then he looks up from the documents, and his blue eyes find me across the room with the specific quality of someone checking whether anyone is paying attention. I am looking at the window. I have been looking at the window since approximately the third sentence. I have the expression of someone who is resting their eyes between sessions. I do not react. I do not adjust anything about my posture or my face. I continue looking at the window. He looks away. He goes back to the documents. I look at the window and I file away everything he just said, and I think about what it means. It means he is going to do exactly what he said he is going to do. After the afternoon break, 20 minutes, and the court side has no idea. I translate precisely and do not have opinions about what I have heard. That is my professional rule. I keep it. But I think about what I heard for the rest of the afternoon, not the strategy, the other part, the part where he described watching how the lead negotiator manages his pride across multiple sessions and understanding him specifically enough to know what framing would work and what would not. He pays attention to people. He pays the specific quality of attention that I pay, the kind that is looking for what is underneath the surface rather than just what is on it. I did not expect that. It is not in his reputation. I file it carefully. I translate precisely. He executes his strategy exactly as planned after the afternoon break, and the session moves forward. Nobody knows this except me. Chapter 3. Over the following weeks, a pattern develops. In the official sessions, he is exactly what his reputation describes: precise, thorough, 3 steps ahead. He speaks carefully in the official languages of the negotiation, and every word he says has been chosen, and nothing he says is unguarded. He is very good at this. I have been translating negotiations for 7 years, and I have sat across from people who were very good at managing their language, and he is among the best I have encountered. And then there are the in-between moments, the recesses, the walks between rooms, the times when both delegations are in the same corridor waiting for a door to be opened or a document to be retrieved, and the official version of the proceedings is briefly suspended. In these moments, he speaks to his advisors in their own language, and I am nearby and nobody thinks about me. I think it started as accident and became assumption. He noticed I was nearby in the first week and checked whether I was listening, and I was looking at a window or a wall, and he concluded I was not. After that, he stopped checking. I became furniture. What I hear in the in-between moments is a different person from the one at the table. Not a hidden person, not a secret version, just the unmanaged version, the one that exists when the performance is briefly suspended. He is funny, that is the first thing I notice. Dry and quiet, and occasionally very funny in the way of someone who finds the absurdity in things and cannot always keep it entirely to himself. He says something to his junior advisor after a particularly circular session about the specific futility of watching 2 groups of people argue about a thing they have already privately agreed on, and it is so precisely observed that I have to look at the floor for a moment. He is tired, not in the way of someone complaining about being tired, in the way of someone who has been doing a very demanding thing for a long time and is managing it well and is also aware that managing it is costing something. He says to his senior advisor one evening as they are leaving a session that he will be glad when this is done. He says it simply and without elaboration, and the advisor nods and says something about the end being close, and Caen says he is not talking about the negotiation. I hear that and I think about it for the rest of the evening. He is careful with his staff, in a way that is similar to how he is careful in negotiations, but applied differently. He notices when his junior advisor makes a mistake in a briefing document and corrects it privately and without making anything of it rather than in the session where it would have been embarrassing. He asks his senior advisor about something personal, a family matter, in a way that suggests he remembered it from a previous conversation and had been intending to ask. He has a habit of going still when he is thinking, not the restless stillness of someone waiting for something to happen, the complete stillness of someone who is somewhere inside themselves and has temporarily stopped needing to perform anything for the outside world. I have seen him do this in sessions when the other side is conferring, and I see him do it in the corridor sometimes, and in those moments, he looks like a completely different person from the one at the negotiating table. He looks, in those moments, like someone who is very tired of being the person everyone expects him to be. I translate precisely. I do not have opinions. I keep my professional rule. I also keep building this portrait of him from the things he says when he does not know I am listening, and the portrait does not look like his reputation at all. Chapter 4. The night sessions happen when the negotiations reach a point where both sides agree that momentum is more valuable than rest. They are uncommon but not rare. When they happen, I am there because I am always there when there is translating to be done. The night session in the 4th week is long. 4 hours in a room that has gotten too warm and where everyone's patience is significantly thinner than it was at the start of the day. Both sides are close to an agreement on the secondary point that has been blocking progress, and both sides are also very tired, and tiredness makes people less careful. The agreement is reached just before midnight. Both lead negotiators sign the interim document, and there is the particular relief of a room where something difficult has finally concluded. People begin gathering their things. Staff are called. The room starts to empty. I am at my station at the side of the room organizing my notes. This is the administrative part of my job that happens at the end of every session. I do it methodically and without hurrying. Caen is at the table. His advisors have gone ahead. He is looking at the signed document. Not reading it, he knows what it says, just looking at it with the expression I have come to recognize as his thinking stillness. He says something, very quietly, in his own language, not to anyone in particular, just into the room. He says that he does not know why it still surprises him when things that should be simple take this long. He says it as if he is having a private conversation with himself, which he thinks he is. He says that he has been doing this for 20 years, and he should have stopped being surprised by the gap between how long things should take and how long they actually take. Then he says something else. He says he is tired of rooms. Just that, I am tired of rooms, said quietly to himself in a room at midnight when he thinks he is alone. I am not alone. I am at my station at the side of the room, but I am furniture, and furniture does not count as not alone. I look at my notes, I continue organizing them, I do not react. But I hear it and I think about it on the walk back to my quarters, and I think about it while I am trying to sleep. I am tired of rooms, said by a man who has spent 20 years in rooms like this one, negotiating things that should be simple and are not, being 3 steps ahead of everyone, carrying the weight of being the most difficult and most effective person at any table he sits at. I think about what it costs to be that person for 20 years. I think about the tired underneath the precision, the tired that is not in his reputation and is not at the table and is only visible in the in-between moments when the furniture is listening. I think about I am tired of rooms, and I understand it completely. I have been in rooms for 7 years. I have been furniture in rooms for 7 years. I understand something about the specific exhaustion of that. I do not say any of this to anyone. I keep my professional rule. I translate precisely. I do not sleep well that night. Chapter 5. I have a professional rule. What is said in the room stays in the room. I have kept this rule for 7 years. I have heard things in those 7 years that could have been used, that people would have paid for, that would have made certain negotiations go very differently if the other side had known. I have not used any of it, not once. This is not a rule I keep reluctantly. It is the foundation of what I do and who I am in my work, and I would not be what I am without it. But there are things that are not violations of the rule, and that I find myself doing anyway. I know from 3 weeks of listening that he prefers the morning sessions to the afternoon ones because his thinking is clearer before the day has accumulated around him. I know this because he said so to his advisor on a morning when he was in a good mood and they were walking to a session. I do not tell anyone this. But I do mention to the court scheduling staff, when they are trying to decide whether to put a difficult session in the morning or the afternoon, that I have observed the Eastern delegation to be more productive in morning sessions. This is true, and it is within the scope of what a translator might reasonably observe, and it results in the difficult session being scheduled for the morning. I know from weeks of listening that there is one specific topic, a border clause that has been tabled twice already, that makes him genuinely angry in a way that none of the other sticking points do, not strategic anger, real anger. I know this because I heard him talking about it with his senior advisor, and his voice had a quality in it that was different from his usual precision. I do not tell anyone this either, but I am more careful in my translation of anything adjacent to that topic, more precise, making sure that nothing in the language creates an impression that is sharper than what is intended. I know that he is left-handed, and that he always has water rather than the wine that is served in sessions, and that he keeps his notes in a specific order that I understand from watching him. None of this is useful professionally. I know it because I have been paying attention. I am aware that I am paying more attention to him than I pay to most people. I am aware that the portrait I am building from what he says, when he does not know I am listening, has become something I think about outside of the sessions, as well as during them. I am aware that this is a development I should probably examine more carefully than I am examining it. I tell myself it is professional interest. He is a complex subject, and I have always been more interested in complex subjects than simple ones. This is true. It is also not the whole truth, and I know it is not the whole truth, and I file that knowledge away with everything else I am not doing anything with yet. The negotiations are in their 5th week. They are progressing. The end is in sight. When they conclude, he will go back to wherever he came from, and I will be assigned to the next thing, and that will be that. I tell myself this with the specific intention of finding it a relief. I do not entirely find it a relief. Chapter 6. I find him in the court garden on a Tuesday morning before the day's sessions begin. I do not go to the garden looking for him. I go to the garden because it is early and the sessions do not begin for an hour, and I need air, and the garden is where I go when I need air. It is a habit of 7 years, and it has nothing to do with him. He is there anyway. He is sitting on one of the stone benches near the eastern wall, where the old climbing vine has been growing unchecked for years, and has reached the top of the wall and started coming down the other side. He has a document in his hands, but he is not reading it. He is looking at the vine with the thinking stillness I have seen many times in sessions and corridors and rooms. I consider going to a different part of the garden. It is a large garden. There are other benches. I go to the bench near the fountain instead, which is 30 feet from where he is sitting. I sit down. I look at the fountain. I have my own documents, the notes from the previous day's session that I review before each new one. We are in the same garden, and we do not acknowledge each other, and this is completely normal, because in 7 years of being furniture, I have learned that acknowledging the furniture would be strange. He speaks, not loudly, in his own language. He says to the vine, or to himself, or to the early morning, that it is extraordinary how something can grow that completely without anyone managing it. He says it as an observation rather than a complaint. He sounds like someone who finds it interesting rather than problematic. I look at my notes. He says something else. He says that he has been managing things for so long that he has forgotten what it looks like when things are allowed to grow without management. I do not look up from my notes. I turn a page. I read the same paragraph 3 times without absorbing it. He is quiet after that. I am quiet. The garden does the things gardens do in the early morning, light changing, birds, the fountain. After a while, he stands up and gathers his documents and walks back toward the main building. He passes near me. He does not look at me. I am furniture. I sit in the garden for a while after he leaves. I think about something growing without anyone managing it and what it would feel like to be someone who had forgotten what that looked like. I think about this more than the observation warrants. I go back inside, I do my job, I translate precisely. Chapter 7. It happens in the 7th week, 2 weeks before the negotiations are scheduled to conclude. There is an evening reception. These happen periodically, the social performance that runs alongside the formal negotiations, and I attend them in my professional capacity because sometimes things need to be translated at receptions, and it is simpler to have me present than to call for me. I move through receptions the way I move through everything. Precisely, efficiently, present but unobtrusive. Caen is at the reception with his senior advisor. They are near the window that looks out onto the garden. I am on the other side of the room. Between us, there are perhaps 40 people talking and the specific background noise of a formal gathering. His advisor says something to him. I am too far away, and the noise is too much for me to catch it. Caen responds. He's not looking in my direction. His voice carries in the gap between 2 nearby conversations, falling quiet at the same moment, the way sound sometimes does in a crowded room when the noise briefly organizes itself into pockets of relative quiet. He says my name. I do not react. I continue looking at the person I am standing near. I continue holding my glass. I breathe normally. He says it in the context of something his advisor has asked, a question I did not hear, and what he says about me is this. He says that he has been wondering about the translator. He says she is the most interesting person in any room she is in, and he does not think she knows it. He says he has been watching her work for 6 weeks and that what she does is not translation. It is something more than that. He says she understands things that are not in the words, and she carries them across accurately, and he has never seen anyone do that the way she does it. His advisor says something. He says something else. He says that she looks at the window when he talks to his staff during recesses, and he has always assumed she is resting between sessions. He says he has wondered sometimes if she understands them. He says he does not think so because her expression never changes, and she has never reacted to anything he has said. His advisor says something that makes him pause. He says that if she understood them, he would know. He says he is very good at reading people, and he has been watching her for 6 weeks, and there is nothing there that suggests she understands. I am looking at the middle distance. My expression has not changed. My breathing has not changed. My hand holding the glass has not changed. 6 weeks of being furniture. 6 weeks of looking at windows and walls and floors. 6 weeks of the specific discipline of not reacting while hearing things I was not supposed to hear. All of it in this moment. The noise in the room reorganizes itself. The pocket of quiet closes. I hear nothing else. I stand in the reception and I think about what he said about me. The most interesting person in any room she is in, and she does not know it. Something more than translation. 6 weeks of watching. I think about the fact that he has been watching me the way I have been watching him, and that neither of us has known about the other. I go home that evening, and I sit with this for a very long time. Chapter. I have a professional rule. What is said in the room stays in the room. I have been turning this rule over for a week since the reception, and what I keep arriving at is that the rule was built for a specific purpose, and the purpose was to protect the people who spoke in rooms without knowing I understood. The rule was not built for this. This is not what the rule was designed to address. What I am trying to decide is whether to tell him. Not everything, not 6 weeks of private observations catalogued carefully and filed in the part of my mind that I do not show anyone, not the portrait I have been building of the person he is when the negotiating is briefly suspended, not the things I know about him that are his to know and not mine to hold. Whether to tell him that I understand the language he speaks when he thinks I do not, that the window I look at during recesses is not something I am seeing, that the things he has said in those moments have been received in full. I think about why I would tell him. The negotiations are almost over. 2 weeks. When they conclude, he leaves. There is no practical reason to tell him. There is no professional reason to tell him. There is a personal reason. It is this. He said I am the most interesting person in any room I am in, and I do not know it. He said it to his advisor in a room where he thought I was furniture, and he said it with the specific quality of voice he uses when he is not performing anything. The unmanaged version. The one I have been collecting for 6 weeks. And I have been watching him for 6 weeks in the same way that he has been watching me, and neither of us has known about the other, and there are 2 weeks left, and then he is gone, and I am not willing to let that be the end of it without him knowing. Without him knowing that I heard, that I have been paying attention, that the furniture has been here the whole time and the furniture is a person, and the person has found him the most interesting subject she has encountered in 7 years. I decide to tell him. Not in a session, not in a formal space. In the garden, in the morning, which is where I have seen the unmanaged version of him, and where I am most likely to be able to say the thing I want to say without it being a performance. I go to the garden the next morning. He is there. Chapter 9. He is at the bench near the climbing vine again, the same bench, the document in his hands he is not reading, the thinking stillness. I walk to the bench and I sit beside him, not 30 feet away at the fountain bench, beside him. This is not a thing I have done before, and it is immediately different from everything that has come before it. He looks at me, not the checking look he used to give me in the early weeks, a direct look, blue eyes with the quality of attention he gives everything when he is not managing how much he shows. I speak to him in his language. Not a translation, not a professional formulation, just his language spoken directly to him in the garden in the early morning before the sessions begin. I tell him that I have understood everything he has said for 6 weeks. I tell him that when he speaks to his staff during recesses and I am looking at the window, I am not resting. I am listening. I tell him that I have a professional rule about what is heard in a room and I have kept it. I have not used anything he said. I have not shared it. What was said in the room has stayed in the room. I tell him that there is one thing I heard that is not in the room anymore, that I am choosing to take it out of the room, that I am telling him now because he said it without knowing I heard, and I do not want to keep it without his knowing that I have it. He is very still, the thinking stillness but different from before, more present. His eyes are on me and not moving. I tell him what he said at the reception, about the translator, the most interesting person in any room and she does not know it, something more than translation. I say it back to him in his own language, the words he used, and I watch his face receive them. Something moves across his face that I have not seen before, not embarrassment exactly, something more complex. the expression of a person who has said something private and is now learning that it was received by the person it was about, the specific quality of being known when you did not know you were being seen. I understand this feeling. I have been experiencing a version of it for 6 weeks. I tell him something else. I tell him that I have been paying attention to him for 6 weeks the same way he has been paying attention to me. That the portrait I have built from what he says when he is not performing is different from his reputation and more interesting than his reputation, and that I am going to have to stop building it in 2 weeks when the negotiations conclude, and I am not willing to stop without him knowing it existed. The garden is very quiet around us. The morning light is good. The vine on the wall is doing whatever it has been doing for years without anyone managing it. He looks at me for a long time. His blue eyes are doing something I have not seen them do in 6 weeks of watching, something that is not managed or strategic or 3 steps ahead. He says my name, in his language, the way you say a name when you have been thinking about it for a while and have been waiting to say it directly. Then he says something that I was not prepared for, even though I have spent 6 weeks learning to be prepared for what he says. He says that he has wondered for 6 weeks what she would sound like if she spoke to him instead of for him. He says now he knows. He says it is better than he imagined. I look at the vine on the wall, I look at my hands, then I look at him. I tell him that he should have lowered his voice. He looks at me for a moment and then he laughs, a real laugh, the full version, not the dry, quiet, almost humor I have been cataloging for 6 weeks, the real one. It is better than I imagined, too. Chapter 10. There are 2 weeks left, and we use them differently from the previous 6. The sessions continue. I translate precisely. He negotiates with the same thoroughness that is his professional self. Nothing about the official work changes, because neither of us would allow the official work to change. We are both too good at what we do to let the personal contaminate the professional. What changes is the in-between. He speaks to me now, directly, in his own language sometimes and in the official court language sometimes, switching between them with the ease of someone who has been thinking in both for 6 weeks. He asks me questions about the languages I speak and how I learned them and what the work is like from the inside of it. He asks these questions with the same quality of attention he brings to everything, the full kind, and I answer them with the same honesty I showed him in the garden. I ask him questions back about the negotiating and what it looks like from his side, about the 20 years and what they have been, about the tired underneath the precision and whether he has always known it was there or whether it arrived gradually. He answers honestly, not the way he answers in sessions where every word is chosen for effect, the way he speaks when he thinks he is not being heard, directly, without management, with the specific quality of someone who has spent a long time performing and has been given permission to stop. I have been the only person hearing the unmanaged version of him for 6 weeks. Now I am the person he is giving it to deliberately. The difference between those 2 things is enormous, and I feel it in every conversation. We go to the garden in the mornings before sessions. Not every morning, but most of them. We sit on the bench near the vine and we talk, and the vine does whatever it does, and the morning does whatever mornings do, and we are in it together in a way that has nothing to do with translations or negotiations. He tells me about the thing he said in the night session. I am tired of rooms. He tells me what he meant by it and what the 20 years have looked like from the inside and what he is tired of specifically, not the work. He is not tired of the work. He is tired of the distance the work requires, the specific loneliness of being the person everyone is watching and performing for, and nobody is simply with. I tell him that I understand this. I tell him about 7 years of being furniture, about being the voice in the room that nobody registers as a person, about the specific and strange loneliness of knowing everything that is happening in a room and being invisible in it. He listens to all of it. He has always listened well. Now he listens to me, and it is not furniture being observed. It is a person being heard. On the last morning before the final session, he tells me something. He says that when the negotiations conclude, he has to return home, and then he has 2 more negotiations scheduled in other courts, and he does not know how long it will be before he is in this court again. He says he would like to write to me while he is away. I look at the vine on the wall. I tell him that I speak 14 languages fluently and 3 more well enough to be useful, and that I can read anything he sends me. He says that is not what he is asking. I tell him I know. I tell him yes. Epilogue. He writes in 4 languages. This is not something he told me. It is something I discovered when the letters started arriving, and each one was in a different one of the languages I had mentioned to him, working through them, and I understood that he was learning which ones felt most like him, and which ones felt most like me, and which ones felt most like both of us. The letters are not short. He's not a person who does things in a small way when a larger way is available and appropriate. They are long and specific and funny in the dry, quiet way I cataloged for 6 weeks before he knew I was cataloging anything. They are honest in the way he is only honest when he thinks no one is listening, except now he knows I am listening, and he is honest anyway. I write back at length, in the language that feels most like the one we use in the garden, which is not any single official language, but a particular combination of two that we arrived at somewhere in the second week of morning conversations and have not left since. He understood my letters immediately. I did not need to explain the combination. He was already in it. 6 months after the negotiations conclude, he comes back to the court for a different matter entirely. He sends me a letter 3 weeks before he arrives, which I receive with the particular feeling I have come to associate with his letters, something in the chest that is specific and warm and belongs to him. I am in the garden when he arrives, not because I plan to be, because it is morning and I needed air, and the garden is where I go when I need air, and this has nothing to do with him. He finds me there anyway. I have a feeling he looked for me there first. He sits beside me on the bench near the vine. The vine has grown further since he left. It is almost entirely over the wall now and starting down the other side. He says something, in the combination language we arrived at, the one that is not any single official language. He says he has thought about this garden for 6 months, not as a place, as the thing that happened in it. I look at him, tan skin and gray hair and blue eyes that are not managed in any way at all. The unmanaged version I have known from the beginning, before he knew I knew it, and that he has been giving me directly for 6 months of letters. I tell him that I have thought about it too. He looks at the vine, then he looks at me. Then he reaches across and takes my hand the way you take the hand of someone when taking their hand has been where everything has been going for a long time and the time has finally arrived. I hold his hand. The garden is the same garden. The morning is a good morning. The vine has grown without anyone managing it for 6 more months and is extraordinary. I have been the voice between people for 7 years, the function in the room, the furniture. In this garden, I am none of those things. I am just here, heard, seen, in a language that is ours and nobody else's. That is everything. That is more than enough.